Welcome to episode 6 of the Cranky Fan Podcast on the FL Teams podcast and YouTube channel. I am your host, the Cranky Fan, and as usual, we are sponsored by no one. Oh well. Today we're keeping it in the family too, the FL Teams family. I have Jeff Macolino with me, who was so nice to have me on his shows before we got this thing ramped up, and I wanted to return the favor. Today is Monday, August 1st. It is trade deadline day, and there's a lot to talk about. And as we were recording at 5:08 Eastern Daylight Savings Time, as we were looking at Twitter, as we're scrolling through Twitter, we just see a major move. Well, I don't know if I'd call it major as far as changing the results of the playoff picture this year, but the Rays have just DFA'd Brett Phillips. Jeff, you were scrolling Twitter. What do you see?
Yeah, it looks like so my assumption is the Rays are trading a non-40-man roster player. The report is they're getting center fielder Jose Siri from the Astros as part of a 3-team trade with the Orioles. I'm not sure if that relates to Trey Mancini being traded from the Orioles to the Astros. Because that came out not too long ago. Jose Siri, by the way, looking at him, the first thing that jumped out is he has a 0.8 wins above replacement level for the season while he's batting 178 with a 238 on base percentage. So I assume this is a glove move, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, he's younger, but
we're just rearranging more deck chairs on the Titanic. It's all we're doing. I mean, we've made 3 deals now in the last 2 weeks for guys hitting under 200 this year.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're adding a lot of bad bats.
Yeah. My stance has been for the last several weeks that at some point you just can't overcome the amount of injuries we had. And if you want to call that an excuse, fine, but it's the truth. And
right.
Teams like the Yankees and the Astros, they're a piece or two away. They had to make a deal because they needed one piece. They need a right-handed bat, for example, or they need another starting pitcher. They don't need to replace 6 guys in their lineup. They don't need to replace 4 bullpen guys. They don't need to replace, 2 outfielders. They just need pieces. And I think they're acting appropriately, and I think they're making the right moves for the run. And to me, when there's too much to replace this year, there's no sense in depleting your farm system when the window is open for the next couple of years with this team. So I think, okay, these are window dressing moves. Fine. They're not making that much of a difference, but really, why bother? I don't know.
So I like the David Peralta trade.
Me too.
Because we get, giving up a 19-year-old catcher, the odds of him actually being anything are slim. So I like adding at least a competent bat to the lineup. But yeah, some of these other moves are, and who knows what we gave up in this trade. I'm not seeing from just a pure statistical. I mean, his batting numbers looked good last year. He had 49 plate appearances, so that doesn't mean anything. He had a 956 OPS and 49 plate appearances, but anybody can close their eyes and, I mean, maybe not close their eyes and get a 946 OPS, but no, nonetheless, 49 plate appearances doesn't say anything. So maybe they think he has more upside than Phillips, and I think we've seen Phillips's upside already.
I mean, Brett Phillips in a different universe has a perfect role in this team. We don't lose Margot. We don't lose KK. He's got a perfect role in this team as being a late inning defensive replacement and, a base stealing, a guy who can come in and a pinch running thing. But
yeah,
unfortunately for him, he had to play 5 out of 7 days a week against righties and lefties. And I'm sorry, nice guy, local guy, all that. I get all that, but something, this isn't Little League.
Right.
This isn't, our kids are playing. We're trying to win a World Series, and this team is good enough. I get it with the injuries, but we're trying to win a championship. And Oh, well, I mean, just because you had an incredible 1 in a million hit 2 years ago in the World Series doesn't mean you get a lifetime pass. And so, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm scrolling through Twitter right now and people are in shock. They're furious or upset. It's like, he's a backup outfielder at best, who's not a very good, who can't hit.
Look, if Josh Lowe didn't continue to make boneheaded plays all the time, Brett Phillips probably would have been DFA'd in the Peralta move instead of Lowe being sent down, because Josh Lowe is starting to look pretty comfortable at the plate to me. Like, I kind of think it was, part of me is like, he deserves to be sent down because he just the inside the park home run off his face was disgusting.
I just think
being picked off the next game was.
I think they have very high hopes for Josh Lowe. I really do.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to make the same mistake they did with his brother.
Yeah.
Guys that they've given up too early on. But I also think they want him to play every day. And I think that, I just don't think they think he's ready yet. I think they made a big mistake in the offseason last year thinking he was ready. And he wasn't. I mean, the Austin Meadows trade was made for him to play every day. And it didn't work out. And that's fine. I mean, everybody's development in the minors from 2020 until this year has been screwed up in one way or another. Guys have been delayed. They didn't get to play at all in 2020. People got moved up a year ahead of where they should be. We talked about Wander Franco probably moved up a little faster than he probably was really ready to. And I think they just want him to play every day. And I think now they've made the decision, we're going to kind of go for it this year. We think we could, if we just can get in, knowing all the, the pitchers that are coming back, the Nick Andersons and the Chargois are coming back, and maybe Tyler Glasnow can come in back, maybe not in the rotation, but maybe give you an inning and a shot. They believe, like I believe, that just get in.
Yeah.
Once you can just get in, pitching is going to, that's how they're going to advance if they get in with pitching. So, they'd rather have Josh Lowe thinking of the big picture, send him back to Durham for the last month, play every day, get your at-bats, get your confidence, come back in September. Maybe he's a late addition to the postseason roster if necessary. If not, we start over next year. This is not a team where the window is shutting after this year.
Right.
And it's a very fine line. I mean, they're certainly not, giving up. They're not sellers, which is smart, but they're not really buyers. They're just little things around the margins. I still don't think it means anything with these moves. Is the team really better right now than it was 2 months ago? Who's healthy? I'm not talking about the injured guys.
Aside from Peralta, I don't think any. Now, look, this is the kind of move that the Rays make, and Jose Siri might come out and hit 400 for the rest of the season. We'll say, what geniuses in this front office. They knew it the whole time, which, look, the Rays, more than any other franchise, it seems, in the past 5 to 10 years, have that happen.
I'm actually going to do a show in a couple of weeks. I may even wait till the season's over, of kind of analyzing all the moves they've done in the last 5 years. And is it really, everything they do turns to gold? Not really. For every move where they fleece the Pirates, they get fleeced by the Padres, or they get fleeced by the Giants. So I mean, that's a off-season assignment for me. But the perception around it. Yeah, the perception around baseball is, don't trade with those guys; they'll hose you. But more than not, but not
with bullpen arms. My guess would be, with bullpen arms, they're going back to trading. I think it was Seth McClung for Grant Balfour.
Right.
Turned into, in 2008, he was one of the most dominant relief pitchers in history.
Him and Soriano together were fantastic.
Yeah, no, they and the Dan Wheeler Ty Wigington trade turned out great for the Rays too. Not that Wigington was a bad player at all; they just needed Dan Wheeler in that bullpen. But I will say, I think the interesting thing would be, my guess would be, they probably win more trades than they lose. The free agency, though, I think they probably lose way more than they win. Thinking of, again, going back, this is when the current general manager and decision makers were interns working at my level with the Rays.
Well, here's my analogy. And if I offend anybody, tough. If I'm going shopping for clothes to go out on a Saturday night and I go to the Walmart bargain bin, am I picking up any good looking girls? Or if I go shopping at the mall and go to the high end stores and get a really fancy shirt and really nice shoes and really nice pants, if I go to a bar or a club, there's a better chance I'm going to get somebody's number. Now, of course, I'm showing my age because now people just swipe to get dates. But I mean, that's my point is free agency. I don't expect to do well because we're not shopping with the big boys. We're trying to save our money, and we only have a small allowance we get each year from our parents.
What wasn't that so odd though this past offseason when we took such a big swing at Freddie Freeman and offered him
here's my theory.
250 million or something.
Here's my theory. 2027, this lease is over.
Yeah.
In the Trop. 2028, they're playing somewhere else. Whether it's a new stadium in Tampa, a new stadium in St. Pete, a new stadium in Charlotte. And the revenue problems, why this team is a small revenue team, should be going away. And I think if they stay in the Tampa St. Pete area, the decade-long deal about a new cable deal will finally be settled. And then they could say, okay, we're locked in. Oh, Tampa's the 10th biggest TV market in the country, in the third biggest state in the country. Revenues are going to go exponentially up in a few years. So I think once that's settled and determined, you could start planning in the future for contracts. I mean, the Wander Franco deal kicks in. When does the big money kick in? 26? Yeah. Closer to when the revenues are coming in. And then by then, there might be a whole different deal with digital revenue from, MLB TV. ESPN will probably overspend in Fox. So there's more money coming to these teams. But it's no longer the great abyss where we're just a small market team and we're screwed forever. So you're starting to see, more investment by ownership because they know there'll be more return on it coming, sooner than later.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I've always felt a little guilty because, again, I worked for the Rays for 5 seasons. Mm-hmm. And I met Stu Sternberg, and he at least seems like one of the nicest people on the planet. But my insult to him, and I'm a big time capitalist. Make your money. That's right. But my thing with sports is always like, yeah, you should get in it to win. You shouldn't care about making money. Like it's just again, it goes counter to everything I believe in outside of sports. But it's like, right, come on, you're here to win. I think the difference between Jeffrey Vick with Lightning and Stu Sternberg with the Rays has always stood as a kind of a sharp contrast where one guy moved here, invested tons of money in the Tampa area. Now Stu Sternberg though doesn't get credit. He bought the Tampa Bay Rowdies.
But also Vinnick's a billionaire.
Oh yeah,
with a B. Sternberg was a multimillionaire, and he's also the principal partner of a partnership group that bought the Rays too. We're also talking now 16 years ago, he bought that team for like $300 million. Baseball teams are worth a heck of a lot more now. So he's not a billionaire who just has money to burn. I mean, a lot of his wealth is tied up in the value of this team. It's kind of like thinking about if you're, you bought a house 30 years ago and you bought it for $100,000 and it's now worth $800,000. Are you a millionaire?
Where I am right now.
Are you a millionaire? Can you go out and like, hey, I'm buying, I'm going to Burns every night because I'm worth $800,000. Well, on paper you are, but you don't have the cash to. And also, if you tell me one businessman who in a business that's probably, if it's not losing money, it's just barely breaking even, who's just going to just throw money in and throw cash poor bad money after good money? The value of the team keeps going up, but the cash flows certainly aren't. Not until they get a new stadium. So it's like, and everybody gets the blame, like, oh, he's cheap. It's like, listen, I own the bar up in Gainesville, and that bar didn't make any money. am I supposed to just keep putting bad money after good? No, that's not business. That's not investing. Your
Right.
ROI is negative that way.
And to credit him, I know for a fact he lost money between improvements to Tropicana Field and a couple of maybe impulsive decisions as far as trades and free agency signings
But even that,
so no, I'm giving
that's
him credit. I'm giving him
yeah.
credit as he does want to win. I think that's just
absolutely.
I think it's a bad. I think it's a misread as far as the public goes, including myself. Is that he does want to win. He will say, yes, we're beyond budget. I'm going to lose money, but I want to trade for
this market has never got it and never will get it. And this is where I get into a lot of fights with my, I lived in the Tampa Bay area for 15 years. Obviously, I'm still a Rays fan. Obviously, I'm still a Lightning fan. I'm a Gator. And I've lived up here now, lived in New York now for 21 years. The differences between fan bases is night and day. The Tampa Bay market feels that everything should be as cheap as possible, and they deserve it that it should be. Like, they have the college night where tickets are $5 or $10 or something. And they're like, why isn't that every night? Just look at the listing of saying how much a family of four going to a baseball game where Tampa Bay fits in that pecking order of major league cities. If you want to be a major league city, you have to pay. It sucks that, contracts are so high, but that's what the price is to be that. And everybody doesn't have to sit 2 rows behind home plate. If you can't afford to sit there, nobody has to say, and you have to get your kids 12 things of cotton candy for every game.
Yeah.
There are different price points for things to go, but the market down there just thinks that they're entitled to all of these things. And that's not the way it works.
It's, my dad grew up in New York and he talked about or New Jersey, I should say. And he talked about all the trains and subways he had to get to a Yankees game. I also think there's a little entitlement with, aside from some of the design standpoints of Tropicana Field, I've always thought complaining constantly about the location or this or that. First of all, you've lived here long enough to know the Rays cannot play in an outdoor stadium without at least a retractable roof, or half their games would be postponed. It just is not feasible. I also always enjoyed it as a kid and still now getting to go sit in a nice, cool place, 72 degrees. I don't want to sit in the hot sun on
especially if you're a fan base
day.
Especially if you're a fan base that doesn't know better. I mean, a lot of people I know there's a lot of transplants who are from New York, Boston, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, but there are also a lot of people now who lived in New York, in the Tampa Bay area their whole lives. There's generation now of kids, and they don't know, all they know is going to the Trop. They don't know what it's like to go to a game in Cleveland or, Pittsburgh or something. So what's the difference if it's indoors or outdoors? It's location. It's all it is the simple fact it's just location. And I had a conversation once with Brian Cashman. I sat next to him at a dinner one night, and we were talking about the Rays and the Yankees. And he said something about attendance. He said something like that standard, I just wish the attendance was better. And I said to him, let me ask you something, Brian. If Yankee Stadium was located in the southern tip of Staten Island and there was no subway to get there, how do you think you draw? And he's like, terribly. Like, that's our problem. Where the Trop is relative in the Tampa Bay area, where, there's if you look at a 10-mile radius of the Trop, well, half of it is water, so no one lives there. The other half, that's, St. Pete, once you get past, downtown and along Beach Drive and Old Northeast, the demographics, the economics are, lower income, a lot lower income than other places in the area. Where are all the corporate locations? Where are all the corporate headquarters in the area? In Tampa. The split, I think, is 75%, 25% season tickets to individuals, 75% individuals, 25% corporate. Almost every other market, it's 75% corporate, 25% individual. Corporate heads in Tampa are not driving over that bridge. I mean, it's part of the culture here. You don't go over. Traffic sucks. all of these things. So all of these things factored in. It's not that they're bad fans. I mean, we finished 17th in local TV ratings, on Bally Sports last year. It's not that they don't care. They just don't want to go to a place that's out of the way.
Yeah, I think that's just been an ingrained, convenient excuse, though, because
it's true.
You travel over the bridge. It's an hour to get there. Considering traffic around the Trop, we'll say it's an hour to get back home. I understand that's inconvenient. Mm-hmm. I get it, but it's not like people don't do that for. I know plenty of people who go from St. Pete to Tampa to watch Lightning games. They don't care that it takes an hour and a half. Traffic going to Tampa from St. Pete is way worse in the rush hour.
But the people who come from St. Pete to Tampa are the exception. I mean, most people, again, a lot more corporate season tickets are sold for the Lightning. I mean,
I get it.
Also, look at all the other places around Major League Baseball. Where are stadiums located? In downtowns. I mean, other than Kansas City, Anaheim, I mean, there's not many locations where stadiums, ever since the Camden Yards, revolution of stadiums, are not in downtown or major areas.
And the Trop, yes, ideally. Look, the Al Lang location that they were going for back in 08 or 09, whatever year it was, that they gave up because they were afraid
for a vote. They were afraid to take the vote.
Yeah, there was a lot of politics involved with boat owners losing some docks or something. But that's in the heart of downtown St. Pete, which back then, I don't know about now, but downtown St. Pete destroyed downtown Tampa as far as nightlife.
Of course.
For a decade. Jeff Vinnick actually invested heavily in Channelside and all that stuff in Tampa. And I'm going to obviously not quote him directly, but he said, we need downtown Tampa to be modeled after what downtown St. Pete's doing.
Sure.
If the stadium was there, I mean, look, I can go out on a Monday or Tuesday night downtown St. Pete, and there will be 10,000 people mulling. Like, bars will be packed on a Monday and Tuesday night. There's a baseball stadium there selling reasonably priced tickets and drinks. People would say, we might as well go there.
But remember something, though. Those 10,000 people on a Monday night in St. Pete live down there.
Yeah.
You're not getting many people coming over the bridge. And again, if you get every single one of those 10,000 people going to the game, you're still less than half of what the league average of attendance is. But here's the thing, though. I think the attendance part of it is a little overblown. It's not as important how many people are in the seats. It's the revenue they can drive out of that stadium. If they can get 15,000 people a night, but they're paying more money, like when they say, there's a $5 giveaway, they'll get people in the seats. That's a waste of time. I mean, they're probably losing money because they have to stock up more security guards and more ushers and more of this stuff, where for $5 a pop, those people I guarantee you they're not spending $80, $90 on concessions. I guarantee it. They're not getting programs. They're not buying a jersey every time. They're just trying to get in. Otherwise, they would be going at a regular price.
Right.
It has to be centrally located. And forget the argument about by the fairgrounds, because the silliest argument is, well, what about the Orlando people? Hey, how many people from Tampa Bay you think go to a Magic game? 50?
Maybe.
Maybe?
Yeah. Well, it's ridiculous. If you're going to drive 90 minutes to get to a game, you probably will drive an extra 45 minutes. Is my hunch.
But the people who live in North Pinellas, St. Pete, they're not driving over a bridge, through a downtown, through the I-4 mess to get there. You could forget the Pinellas County population for that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we get off into this tangent, but I think it's about money. And and again, I think that's, I don't even know why we're even talking about money, honestly. But at the bottom line is, we're getting back to, what the Rays need to do, for this season. Where do you think about this team right now? I mean, they're scuffling along right now because obviously they're missing lots of key guys. Let me pose it to you in a question this way. Are you more concerned about getting into the playoffs or how they do if they get into the playoffs themselves?
At this point, I would probably say more concerned about getting into the playoffs. It, I was looking yesterday while I was incredibly frustrated with the game that was going on for multiple reasons. A lot of it just being it was bad. There was a lot of bad luck yesterday.
They're just unwatchable lately too. They're just boring and unwatchable.
Yeah, see, Saturday's game I thought was great. The bats were pretty good, but yeah, Sunday's game it killed me because Cleveland was hitting the ball so soft, and they were just so. I think it was the first inning where they hit a little blooper just inches over Brandon Lau's glove, and it's like the way they were running the bases. If he catches that ball, that's a triple play.
Yeah,
because they were so out, and he missed it by inches, and it wasn't his fault. But it's like that's just bad luck. The exit velocity off the bat was nothing. McClanahan's probably going to lose the Cy Young Award on that outing, and it's unfortunate because it wasn't his best game, but he didn't pitch nearly as poorly as his line was. But anyways, I think getting to the playoffs is now my concern because I look at the lineup and I say, all right, well, in 3 to 4 weeks, Margot's should be back. Wander Franco should be back. And I'm forgetting the other guy who should be back.
Ramirez.
Yeah, should be back. It's like, that means if you look at the lineup now and you add those three and take out Chang and you take out, it's like this should be, if anything, it's like, well, where are we going to bat Isaac Paredes? Because I don't think we want to take his bat out.
It reminds me of 2008. Well, if you remember 2008, that lineup was it was the great pitching that, and the great pitching over 162 got us, win division and everything. And if we could have, this year it's a wash because of all the injuries and stuff, but you can just get a lineup that's just competent. Again, if you have, Shane McClanahan, you have him as your anchor and your ace. Now, the thing is, you got to remember at a wild card series, it's not, you can't line up your rotation as best you want. And thank God there's no 1-game playoff anymore, where at least if it's a 3-gamer, theoretically, you could still have your ace starting game 1 of a wild card and game 1 of a ALDS. So it's not as taxing on the lower seed team. But, and again, if Gladnell can come back, and even if he provides a couple of innings, use him as an opener.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And have the back end of the bullpen, they already DFA'd Bard today. Guys like, Garza, these are scrubs, and they should not be on major league rosters. Guys like Nick Anderson come back. Chargois comes back. Now, all of a sudden, you're sliding all these other guys down, and you have true higher leverage guys coming back. And then a guy like Whistler, when he comes back, who I bag on all the time, but all of a sudden, he's not your second best reliever. Right. All of a sudden, he's your 5th best. And I have no problem with him pitching the 6th inning of a game. To me, that's a pretty good 6th inning guy to have. Just Kevin Cash's insistence that he's a high leverage pitcher, that's why there's no more hair left hardly in this head. I promise, and I promise I wouldn't talk about Kevin Cash.
Fairbanks is starting to, he's been injured all year, but his first few outings were rough, but I think he's starting to get it together. That's a big arm too.
Sure. Absolutely.
That's my biggest concern with this team is I look at McClanahan, who I think is probably, again, deserving of winning the Cy Young Award. But pretty certain you can't trust that he's going to be able to pitch more than 6 innings, even in a postseason game.
Well, I trust him. I have no trust in Kevin Cash keeping him in for 6 innings.
I don't see that's where I think we disagree a little bit. I don't think Kevin Cash has any say in how long Shane McClanahan gets to pitch. I think the front office has a book, and it is you pull him after this many innings or this many pitches. Frankly, I think I can't say this for certainty, But remember when Joe Madden and the Rays kind of broke up a little bit back in the day? I think it's because Joe Madden kind of rebelled against that book.
All right, I wasn't going to bring up Kevin Cash in this episode because people are tired of hearing it. But now you've opened the floodgates, and I want to throw out a theory to you, which I haven't brought up on this show yet. So don't hang up, don't hit stop yet, because this one you haven't heard yet. The Kevin Cash / organizational methodology of this team. Do you think that's a factor in why several veterans have come here, have played poorly and kind of badmouth their way out of here? I'm thinking of the Hunter Renfroes. I'm thinking of the Tommy Phams, guys that have come in and didn't stay very long, were traded pretty quickly, or, weren't re-signed when they were available to be re-signed, and didn't have nice things to say on the way out because they're guys who are used to playing every day. They're used to their at-bats. They're used to playing traditional baseball, and then seeing, and maybe not necessarily them, maybe not them getting pinch hit for in the 7th inning, but seeing an ace getting pulled after 4 2/3 innings, and they just know how baseball is supposed to be played. So do you think that has impacted some guys that have been here and could potentially impact some free agents coming here of like, why do I want to play here with this, goofy way they play, which hasn't proven to be as successful as people think it is when you get into the postseason? Just a theory.
No, I think you're onto something there, to be quite honest. I think that, look, when the Rays started using the opener, a lot of veteran pitchers were speaking out about how the Rays organization was full of shit. And it was a horrible thing. I mean, and by the way, now what team doesn't occasionally do that?
They'd rather do that than put a scrub in to start a game. Yeah.
Yeah. Cleveland did that on Sunday. I mean, that's now a methodology that gets used by every franchise across Major League Baseball. And the Rays really, they started to really push the opener a few years ago, but they started having what Joe Madden referred to as bullpen days back in, I think, 2009,
right?
Where it was like, yeah, we're going to start bullpen. He's going to go 2 innings, and then we're just going to mix and match the rest of the way. And again, people scoff at the Rays. It's an interesting thing because I do think it hurts their recruitment sometimes. I think it helps when they're going after kind of that BC tier guy because they're like, well, look at what they did with, all these other guys who look at what they did with Ryan Thompson. He couldn't make it anywhere else. And he's
right
now an established veteran pitcher.
Now he's considered a high leverage guy by.
Yeah. I still don't like the high leverage part, although he's been pitching a lot better lately. He's been pitching a lot better lately. But no, I think you're right. And I do think that, again, this is more a hunch than a certainty. I think the manager makes less game day decisions, meaning Cash basically, makes less game day decisions than the average team does. So I also wonder.
I'll buy that. I don't know. Maybe there's definitely a framework and a structure that is brought down by, upper management throughout the course of a season. I don't know when you get to the playoffs in the postseason. I don't know if he takes out the binder and says, well, page 77 says in this situation, like, I don't think that Blake Snell was pulled because of the bat call. The bat phone came from upstairs and they said, okay, he's hit his magic number. He has to come out. I think that was a Cash decision.
I don't know. I wonder, and this is part of my fear with this in a kind of a big picture thing. Even looking at Shane McClanahan, his last start, he needed to be pulled when he was pulled. I don't like that they put Thompson in for him, but he lost it. Yeah. And part of me thinks, look, this guy reached 100 pitches one time all season. If you baby a guy so much, when he gets to 90, he's no longer capable of maybe pushing it another 10%,
that's a problem.
20%. That's a problem. So I think Blake Snell, I'll say, yeah, I think it was probably Kevin Cash's decision, but I think in his head it was, well, you can't go through the lineup more than twice, and he's not used to throwing X amount of pitches. And I think that is a fatal flaw when it comes to postseason play, to be quite honest. It works during the regular season over 162, but the postseason, I was explaining
now I'm
to
gonna
my,
now I'm going to go into rerun mode. This is my standard staying. So now if you want to hit stop, go ahead. But my biggest problem with Kevin Cash is that his overthinking about the 162 game schedule cost this team individual games, and I think too many individual games. I think worrying too much about the big picture when there's a game to be won right now and it's in grasp. I mean, he pulled Shane out last start, 81 pitches.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
I mean, I don't care. Everybody was, they're going to bang on the bullpen for blowing it, but to me, the game was lost. And to me, that goes back to my theory about the vets. It has to say something in that clubhouse and in that dugout when they're seeing their best pitcher, their best player, their Cy Young Award winner pulled for no reason. And it's just, it's deflating. It's like, players are competitors, and you're talking about the most competitive people on the planet, professional athletes who play in America, and they want to be put in the best position to succeed. And when you cut their legs out from them because of something, the stats say in the third time, they're not going to buy it. It just,
some mathematician said this was
exactly
the magic number.
This isn't Gary Kasparov versus IBM playing chess with just pawns that they're moving around a board. These are players who have to play the game. And I think that's it's very deflating for a franchise, for players. And I think that adds up over time. And you're probably right about Madden.
Well, the only reason Cash said something after that game where he got pulled at 7 innings with only 81 pitches, where he said something, we only had him slated to go 6. His pitch count was low enough that we were. And I do remember Joe Madden would have a inning/pitch count limit on his pitchers, which I don't think was his decision. And this was inside knowledge that I probably shouldn't be sharing, to be honest.
And no one's listening to the show anyway. Go ahead.
Good point.
We have no sponsors anyway.
But he would have, there was a calculus. It was, 5 innings, 90 pitches, or 6 innings, 100 pitches, or 7 innings, 105 pitches was acceptable. But if any of those things went out of balance, he had to tug the pitcher and pull him out of the game too. But bad joke. But I do think that my hunch is that part of the divorce between Madden and the Rays, which should have been much more cordial than it was I think partially because I think Joe Madden wanted to actually manage his team and not have the math wizards upstairs who do a great job overall.
You might find this to be no surprise, but I was never a Joe Madden fan. I mean, I'm a traditionalist when it comes to managers. I'm all for analytics. I'm all for, but to me, the game still has to be played by your best players. And giving a sample size of 6 at bats and somebody's 3 of 6 does not make any difference to me if he's 0 of 6. Your best players should be playing the majority of the time, unless there's something that's egregiously bad. Like this guy's a career 140 hitter against lefties. Then that makes more sense. But if we're talking these small sample sizes against maybe a reliever he hasn't faced in 2 years, I think there's too much reliance on that. I mean, you asked me, would I rather have Buck Showalter as manager or Kevin Cash? It's no debate for me.
Oh, see, I would disagree with you all day. I think Buck is an old horse that needs to be put out to pasture.
Yeah, but look at that Mets team. That Mets team is not that good, roster wise. That Mets roster is not it's comparable to ours, even in this little bit injured state. And look what that team is doing.
I will say, so one thing that this is something I don't think I believed until I was in the trenches. I will say, I think the manager's biggest job has nothing to do with game day decisions. I think the manager's biggest job is actually off the field.
Sure.
That's where I think Joe Madden shined the most, is he figured out ways to inspire and build camaraderie. I remember this was in the 08 offseason. This was in the Ray Namoli complex. I was sitting with my people, and Joe Madden came in. He's like, "Oh, we're signing Barry Bonds, according to the news, huh?" Because that was I don't know if you remember, that was the rumors that Barry Bonds, and he's like, "Fuck no, we got Cliff Floyd as our." Sorry, I shouldn't have said the F word, but
oh, go ahead. No one's listening anyway.
we got Cliff Floyd as our DH, and he is such a great clubhouse guy. People love him and respect him. He's bringing the team together. He's like, I wouldn't damage what we have between Cliff Floyd, Percival, and Eric Hinsky. He's like, I wouldn't damage that to sign Barry Bonds in a million years. He's like, now, if we can get him cheap, I'll figure out a way to get him at bats.
Yeah.
but you know, I'm not, you know, dumping Cliff Floyd off this roster, cutting his at bats because, you know, we can get Bonds cheap. And
well, it's going to be interesting. What's going to be interesting on this team is you're going to start getting guys. Used to be, you know, the payroll was so low that everybody made nothing. Maybe a couple guys, maybe a couple vets came in that made some money, or a guy like Longoria who's been there forever. But now all of a sudden, you know, they're opening the purse a little bit. You know, Wander's going to be making way, way, way more than everybody else. And again, as we get closer to 2027, you're going to start seeing guys. It's going to become more of a have and have not in that clubhouse. So it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge how any manager, Kevin Cash, the next guy after him, handles egos and handles those relationships.
No, I agree. I think that's a potential problem. I know Kevin Cash kind of personally. Our sons played in the same flag football league, and you know, so I've had interactions with him. Even when I worked for the Rays, he was a player on the Rays.
Right.
I don't remember talking to him at all because he was a bum. But anyway,
he's a Knoll too. So
yeah, but yeah, right. That too. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a challenge for him because Wander Franco, and look, Shane McClanahan, judging from this franchise's, you know, history, is probably going to be in line for a massive extension here also because they like to lock these guys up early.
Right.
McClanahan, you know, he's a good old.
Lau gets a nice piece of change right now.
Lau, yeah, and him coming back to the lineup makes things look a lot better, even though it's not really making a huge difference.
It will. I mean, over time, it will. The problem is you can't rely on him for this game. It's like, he's a sample size guy. The more sample size you get, the better he is. But, you know, he hits kind of the way Cash manages. It's like, okay, over 162, it's all going to look nice. But you know something? If I need you in a short series or this one individual game, can I count on you? Don't know about that.
No, I don't have trust there. Look, the offense has been so reliant on Yandy Diaz. You know, he's getting, I think he's 30 now. So he's kind of getting up there, but I wouldn't mind looking at, you know, making him a long-term deal because he's the kind of player that ages well, I think. I mean, his size is different, but the way he hits, those are guys who can hit into their late 30s because he's got a sharp eye and he isn't a power.
And he's the type of guy that's not going to command. He's also not going to command a huge paycheck either. He's not a guy who's going to hit 30 homers and 120 RBIs. He's going to hit 280 with a high on base percentage, walk, get on base a lot, play solid defense. You know, he's a guy that if this lineup was completely healthy, you'd be like, this guy's so valuable. He's a perfect piece. He's being asked to be more than what his skill set probably is because just quite frankly, you know, we only have 4 normal guys playing right now. So he's being relied on more than normal. But you're right. So I could definitely see him getting, you know, a deal like Margot got, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That kind of deal I think would be great for him.
Okay, we're about to wrap up, but really quickly, what do you see in the next couple of weeks? We got a short series against Toronto coming up. I mean, we just need to keep treading water for now and just hope for the best until these guys get healthy.
If they can manage to play like 500 ball and just not lose so many more players until we get Franco back and Margot back and Ramirez back. I mean, you get those 3 guys back, Ramirez, I still think is a platoon guy, even though he's having a great year. But regardless, you get those guys back in the lineup, you're going to score a run more per game, I would say, on average, at least. And, look, most of the Rays games are pretty tight games. So one run a game more is going to lead to a lot more wins.
Sure.
So, yeah, tread water and just please, God, stay healthy. And me personally, I know the Rays aren't going to do this. I'd be trying to stretch out my starters a little bit because until the bullpen actually comes back and shows that they're healthy, I'm not going to trust that I can get 3 shutout innings from my bullpen come postseason time. So I would like Shane McClanahan to be able to go 7 or 8 innings. I'd like Rasmussen to be able to go 6, maybe 7 innings.
I think 6 is the minimum. I mean, I think these guys, they're at 90 pitches. They're at 5 in the third. They got to go 6. I mean, if you only have to rely on your bullpen if you can rely on your bullpen for 3 innings a night, and that way, that way instead of having 5 relievers come in every night and 6, you're using 3 or 4. Then you're cooking with gas a little bit because then you're cutting down that rotation. It's like basketball in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You play in the regular season, you play 11 guys, 10 guys. Teams cut down rotations in the postseason, down to 8 guys. Baseball seems to be the opposite, where, all of a sudden your starter goes 2 1/3 in the postseason, and you're using 12 relievers. And besides making it a 5-hour game and pretty boring, I don't think it's having more guys in is more of a chance someone's not going to pitch well, and you're trying to minimize. You want your best players playing. So yeah, this is dangerous times. We just have to get through this. I mean, if we can get through this and we can get one of those playoff spots, again, with our rotation and our bullpen, we could play and we could beat anybody in this short series. It's just got to get there, is what I'm worried about.
Right.
Where can
we've got the bat talent where we've seen Randy Arozarena carried through an entire series on his bat, a couple of years ago. We've got the bat talent that 1 or 2 guys get hot. That's all. That's good enough. We've got the talent that a couple guys could get hot for a series. If the pitching is there, who knows?
Jeff, where can we find you besides on this wonderful YouTube channel we both share?
Well, Bolts and Bats in the Bay is a podcast, usually audio only for FL teams. And hey, you can go to, if you like comedy and kind of lighter stuff, you can listen to the Jeff Macolino podcast. And I've got a YouTube channel too, where the main thing I do is show podcast clips, and I eat new fast food items while I'm intoxicated. So that's
after 9 innings of the Rays, comedy is probably what we all need. So it's, very depressing watching these games. So I strongly recommend that. You can catch me as always on Twitter at the Cranky Fan, my companion podcast, the Just Giants podcast with myself and the Football Grump, as we get into training camp with the Giants. I know none of you people care, but if, for some reason you are a snowbirdy New York fan who's moved down to Florida and you still like the Giants and you like the Rays, come on over and check us out. Training camp is starting, so check us out there. So for Jeff Macolino and all of our friends at the FL Teams channel, and for the sponsors who have yet to sign up with us, thanks for watching, and go Rays. All right.